Hello, lovely people. So I'm reading the Corpus Hermeticum, the Way of Hermes, and the translation is by Salaman, Oyen and Wharton. We're on Book 6, Hermes to Asclepius. The supreme good, O Asclepius, is not in anything, if not in God alone. Rather, the supreme good is always God himself. If this is so, it's the real nature of all movement and of all generation. Nothing is bereft of this real nature, which has an energy that brings things to rest around itself. It is not in want and has no excess. It is completely full and supplies all needs. It is in the beginning of all things. For in saying that the provider of everything is good, I am saying that it is always good in every way. This supreme good belongs to nothing else but to God alone, for he lacks nothing, lest any desire to possess anything may render him evil, nor can anything be lost to him, which would make him grieve, for grief is the heritage of evil. No, being is mightier than God, by whom he could be treated as an enemy, nor is it possible for him to suffer any injustice by anyone, and therefore he will love everyone. No being is disobedient to him, which would provoke his anger, nor is any being wiser, which would provoke his jealousy. Since none of these afflictions belong to being, what is left but the supreme good alone? For just as none of them belong to being, so this good will not be found in any of these afflictions. But all these other afflictions exist in every being, in the small and in the great, in individual creatures, and in that living being himself, the cosmos, which is greater and more powerful than all beings and all things. What is born is full of suffering, for birth itself is suffering, and when there is suffering, the supreme good is never there, and when the good is there, there is no suffering at all. Where there is day, there is no night. Where there is night, there is no day. Therefore, the supreme good cannot be in what is begotten, but only in what is unbegotten. Just as there is provision of everything in the physical world, likewise the supreme good permeates abundantly. In this way the cosmos is good, as it creates all things. It's good with regard to its creative aspect, but in everything else it's not good. For it's subject to suffering and movement, and is the producer of beings who are destined to suffer. Within man, the supreme good is limited by the measure of evil, for in man just a little evil is counted as good. Good for him is the smallest portion of evil. Therefore for him good cannot be free from evil. For in man goodness is ill used, and when it's ill used, goodness no longer remains, and when it does not remain, evil is born. Therefore the supreme good is only in God, or rather God himself is this good. Thus, O Asclepius, there is only the term good for men, never its reality, for that is impossible. The gross body allows no room for it, bound fast everywhere by evil, toils, pains, desires, passions, deceits, foolish opinions. And Asclepius, the worst of all, is that each of these things which have just been mentioned are in man considered to be the greatest good, whereas in fact each is an unsurpassable evil. Greed, the root of all evil, is the error of man. It is the absence of goodness. And I am thankful to God for putting even a taste of the knowledge of the supreme good into my nous, because this good cannot exist in the world, for the world is the sum total of evil. God, the unlimited goodness, or rather goodness, the limitless God, for the excellencies of beautiful things are round his true nature, and appear in some way even more pure and simple, for they are of God. One must have courage to say, O Asclepius, that the essence of God if indeed he has an essence, is beauty. But no beauty and goodness are to be found in the things of the cosmos. For all things which fall under the eye are images, and as it were paintings. But what does not fall under the eye is chiefly the excellence of beauty and goodness. And just as the eye cannot see God, so it cannot see beauty and goodness. For these are the attributes of God, perfect and complete, belonging to him alone. They are his very own, inseparable and most beloved. Either God loves them, or they love God. If you can perceive God, you will perceive beauty, goodness, and splendour, illumined by God. That beauty is incomparable, and that goodness inimitable, as is God himself. Thus, in so far as you perceive God, you must perceive beauty and goodness. These are not shared by other living beings, as they are inseparable from God. If you seek after God, you also seek after beauty. There is one way leading to that beauty, devotion with knowledge. Thus the ignorant and those not on the way of devotion dare to speak of man as beautiful and good. However, man in his dream can by no means see if anything is good, but he takes every evil to himself, believing evil to be good. And thus using it for himself, he becomes insatiable and fearful of being robbed of it. He struggles for everything, not only to have it, but to increase it. Such things are good and beautiful to men, O Asclepius, and we can neither escape them nor hate them. The worst thing of all is that we have need of these things, and we cannot live without them. Book 7. Whither are you being carried, O men, drunk as you are, having swallowed neat the word of ignorance, which you cannot keep down but are already vomiting up? Stop, be sober, look up with the eyes of the heart, and if all of you cannot, at least those who can. The evil of ignorance floods the whole earth and completely destroys the soul confined to the body, not allowing it to be brought to a safe harbour. Therefore, don't be carried down by the great flood, but make use of the tide. Let those of you who can find the safe harbour bring your ship in, and seek one who will lead you by the hand to the gates of the knowledge of your heart. There is the bright light clear of darkness, where no one gets drunk, but all are sober, looking with the heart to him who wills to be seen. He cannot be heard, he cannot be uttered, nor seen by eyes, but by nous and the heart. First you have to strip off the garment which you are wearing, the web of ignorance, the fabric of evil, the knot of destruction, the girdle of darkness, the living death, the sentient corpse, the portable tomb, the robber in your house, him who hates through what he loves and bears malice through what he hates. Such is the hateful garment you wear, which binds you down in itself, lest when you look up and see the beauty of truth and the supreme good which lies within, you should hate the evil of this garment and realize its treachery. This has ensnared you, making the seeming senses, which are not acknowledged, insensible, for it has blocked them up with gross matter and filled them with loathsome pleasures, so that you do not hear what you should hear, and do not see what you should see. Book 8, Hermes to Tat. Now, my son, we must speak about the soul and the body, in what way the soul is immortal, and in what activity which forms the body and dissolves it. Mortality has nothing to do with this. The concept comes from the word immortal. Either mortality is a meaningless word, or it has lost its first syllable, as it is pronounced mortal instead of immortal. Mortality is a kind of destruction, but nothing in the universe is destroyed. If the second God is the cosmos, an immortal being, it's impossible for any part of an immortal being to die. Everything in the cosmos is a part of the cosmos, but especially man, the living being with speech. The first God of all is in fact eternal, unbegotten, and the creator of all. The second God is in the image of the first. He is begotten by him, and he is within him, and by him he is sustained and made immortal. Thus by his own Father he is ever living as an immortal. What goes on living is distinct from the eternal. The eternal was not begotten from another. You might say that he was begotten from himself. If so, he was never begotten, but he is always coming into being. He is the eternal. Because of him, the all is eternal. The Father is eternal because of himself, but the cosmos is eternal and immortal because it is begotten of the Father. And however much material there was, it being subject to his disposal, the Father turned it all into a body. He raised it up and made it spherical, conferring this quality on what he had wrought, namely an immortal and eternal materiality. When he had sewn certain kinds of causal forms into the sphere, he enclosed them as within a cavern. As he wished to adorn the material within himself with all qualities, he invested the whole body with immortality, so that this material would not wish itself separate from its composition with the body, and thus dissolve into its own undifferentiated state. When this material was not a body, it was undifferentiated, my son. In this world, other small things such as growth and diminution, which men call death, are enveloped by this material. This undifferentiated state exists in respect of earthly beings. The bodies of the celestials have one order, which was assigned to them by the Father in the beginning, and this indestructible order is kept unbroken by the periodic return of each body in the cosmic cycle. Within that cycle, earthly bodies are formed, returned, and dissolved into bodies that are indestructible. That is immortal. Thus there is deprivation of the senses, but no destruction of the bodies. The third living being, man, has been begotten in the image of the cosmos. But as the Father willed, not living like the other earthly creatures, not only does he have affinity with the second God, but also a conception of the first. He perceives the second God as a body. The first he conceives as without a body and as nous, that is, the supreme good. Then does this being not die? Be still, my son, and consider what is God. What is the cosmos? What being is immortal? What is dissolved? And consider that the cosmos is made by God and in God. Man is made by the cosmos and in the cosmos, and that God is the source, the boundary, and the constitution of everything. Okay, that concludes Book 8 of Corpus Hermeticum. I hope you enjoyed that. I will see you at Book 9.